Hi everyone. I'm Nigel Saunders and we're back for part 2 of my Larch Bonsai forest. It's mid-April, but there's no April showers today. It's a snowstorm. Many of the trees are covered in a layer of ice. My larch forest is always being planted in a seed tray pot. So this is just a nursery seed tray, and then I have a wooden oak frame around it. So I would like to get it into a really nice pot someday. And I think I'm going to design a 3D printed pot for it. I think it's best to go back inside and work on some trees indoors today. Hi everyone, I'm back inside. I'm working on designing some pots for my larch forest. So I've got a simple pot here, and I also have a more complicated one. Here's a shot of one of the more complicated pots turning. I've tried to make it sort of like a Vietnam style pot, but with a lot of Chinese and Japanese influence. Here's a photo mock-up showing the more complicated pot with my larch forest, just to give me an idea of how it looks. I'll try it with the more simple pot also, and kind of see which I like better. I might also try some traditional flat oval style pots, and maybe some traditional rectangle pots also. It'll kind of give me a feel for what style of pot would look good with this forest. Here's a traditional shallow oval pot. Here's my sort of simple rectangular pot. Here's a shallow rectangular pot with the corners chamfered on it. At our club meeting on Wednesday, Michael had a pot that was really nice, so it inspired me to model up a pot similar to his. There's a shot of that pot. You can see it's kind of got a lip around the bottom of the feet and a lip around the top. And lots of drainage holes in it. Yeah, so I'll see how that looks with the photograph of my larch forest. I think this pot looks really good with the forest. I like the simplicity of it, and yeah, this might be the one that I go with. So even though the weather is bad outside, I can still come indoors and work on my larch forest on the computer. In part 1 of this series, we went out in the forest to look at larch trees, and I've got some photographs that Lessig has sent to me from the Canadian Rockies. Lessig is the person who originally dug up the trees in my larch forest. So let's have a look at those photos now. After almost a week of winter weather, we finally got a nice spring-like day again. I've got the larch forest in the greenhouse here, ready to be worked on. There's still a little bit of snow melting on the forest floor, but we're just going to be working on the top of the trees today. I've got all those larch images fresh in my mind, so I can begin working on the pruning of the larch forest. When I'm pruning this larch forest, I'm going to keep the lower branches horizontal or drooping slightly or going downhill. And as we go up in the tree, I'm going to try and get the branches to go more and more vertical. So I have a lot of that happening right now. I'm going to start pruning the lowest branches. So anything going uphill, I'll prune off to keep my branches horizontal or slightly drooping. I'm always looking for healthy buds to prune back to. Here's an example of a shoot that comes straight up. So I'm not going to totally prune it off. I'm just going to prune it back to this pair of buds down here. Like that. I have to make some major decisions on branches like this, where I've got the branch coming out and then dividing into two here. On the larches that we looked at in nature and photographs, they generally just have like a single branch coming out and then a whole bunch of little fine branches coming off them. They generally don't divide into two strong branches like this. So to make it more larch-like, I probably should remove that one branch there. Even though I'll be losing ramification, I think it'll look better and more larch-like in the end. This is a fairly major decision to remove this branch, but I think in the long run it'll make this forest look more like a larch forest. So here I go. I'm going to come in here. Like that. As I'm pruning the branches on this tree, I'm always looking for nice natural flow lines to the branches. I'm picking the branches that radiate in a radial pattern from the trunk. I don't want branches coming off the trunk at a funny angle. And I'm looking for the branch structure that looks the most natural. I don't want abrupt kinks in the branch. I want to keep it nice and flowing. Up higher there's another branch that also divides into two. So I could prune off this division here and keep my straight branch coming out here. So I think I'll do that. I'm going to come in with the pruners. And remove that. So again, that removes a lot of ramification, but it gives a more realistic larch look to the tree. Here's another branch down low that I need to prune off this side branch. Like that. I'm going to prune the tip back on this one too. It's getting quite long. I'm looking for good buds. I think those are live buds, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to play it safe for now. I just prune back the tip here, and the tip to here, and the tip here, and off here, and here. If these buds back here start to green up later on, I may reduce the branch back to this junction, just removing this tip. I'll continue to prune the trees, making them look more larch-like. So removing all these side branches. I have to admit that pruning away ramification on my branches is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Normally on a bonsai you work towards that ramification on the branches, getting all that fine branching, and now I'm pruning a lot of it away. But like I said, I think it'll make a better tree in the end. At the apex of the tree, I'm trying to simplify the branch structure here too. So I've got two branches that are fairly thick right beside each other, so I'm going to take the one off. This one here. Like that. Yeah, it's a little thick at the top, this larch, so anything I can do to reduce, the branching and the vigor at the top will help stop that swelling in future. Prune off these terminal buds here, keeping the buds lower down. And I'm going to simplify this branch structure up too. I'm going to get rid of this back branch here. Again, reducing all these branches to one main kind of branch structure. There we go. And I'll take off, this one. I want to keep these branches near my apex pointing upwards. I don't want them going downhill. I finished pruning up the main tree. Here's all the branches I cut off. Quite a bit of ramification. Again, it was really hard to do. So here's the tree over here. I'll try and get some shots looking down. So hopefully you can see how I've simplified the branch structure, reducing a lot of the ramification down. I also had to take off a few branches. One off the trunk here was a little crowded. There was 2 branches growing in one spot. There's one up here on the trunk. I decided to take that one off. There's one around the back I took off. Just trying to simplify the structure a bit. You know, reduce some of the crowded areas. Yeah, so that's one tree done. And yeah, I think it looks quite larch-like. Yeah. So I'm going to work on this tree in the corner next. It has a lot of ramification. So there'll be some fairly major reductions coming to this tree. So here I go. All right, let's start simplifying this one. Getting a simplified branch line, or establishing a branch line, I should say. Off with that. So there's my single branch line. I'll keep the fine branching that's coming off my branch. And that's about it for that branch. I finished pruning up tree number 2 now. I hope it looks more larch-like. I think it does. I'm almost done pruning up the larch forest. I've still got a few trees in the back corner to finish up, and then we'll go in and have a look at it. Here's a shot of the larch forest all pruned up. There are some branches that I wasn't sure if they were alive or dead, so as the buds develop I might be able to do a little more pruning to the trees. But I'm happy with it. I'm just having a look at it now. Yeah, I've made the trees a lot more compact. Got rid of all that bulky ramification. It makes the trees look larger when you prune the branches back like that. They look more like a forest tree rather than a tree that's growing out in the open. Yeah, so that's it. Here's a shot of all the branches I pruned off. All that ramification that I grew. Wow, big step. So here's the larch forest. I'm going to try and get some shots, maybe from above here, so you can kind of get an idea of the space around each tree, what the branch structure looks like now. I'm going to be doing a lot of work to the landscape this year, adding more pathways and all kinds of cool details, so stay tuned for that. It is so nice to be working outside under the sun in the greenhouse today. It's been a long winter. I'm glad to get out here. So let's go back inside now and we'll check out today's update. I've got the larch forest back on the bench now, and I put a layer of snow on top of the soil just to keep it watered when the weather gets a little warmer. I'm back inside now. I'll get my table cleared off and we'll start with today's updates. The first update is to my Plumeria bonsai. I chopped the top off and planted the cutting, and now the cutting's starting to grow, and also my original plant is starting to get some branching at the top. Here's a close-up of the tops of the 2 trees. So here's the bumps forming, one here and one here, for my branches on the original Plumeria stump. And the other one has a nice leaf coming on it now. I kept them fairly dry over the winter, and now they're starting to respond, growing in springtime. So that's good. Hopefully I'll get 2 Plumeria bonsais out of the one plant I bought. The next update is my dragon's tree. In the last video of this tree, I repotted it and pruned the branches off the top to get more ramification. and it's just slowly starting to grow in now. In nature, the branches of this tree divide after it flowers. So it gets a flower on top, and then it continues to grow with branches. So the pruning of the branches sort of duplicates this to create a miniature version of the full-size tree. A lot of my shoots aren't coming out on the outside. I would have liked them to all fan out from the center of the tree, but I don't have much choice in that at the moment. I'll just let these grow and prune them again, and hopefully over the years the canopy will sort itself out. The branches on the inside will probably get shaded out, and it'll start growing more branches on the outside of the canopy where it gets the light. So it survived its first steps as a bonsai tree, it survived repotting, and its first pruning, and it's starting to get a branch structure. These trees are quite inexpensive to buy, so there's a possibility I might create a forest in the future with them. The next update is my rainforest made of kapok trees that I planted fairly recently. I'll do some misting to give it that real rainforest look. Here I go. All the growth that you see in this shot is the understory growth. The canopy will be quite high in this forest. The tops of the canopy are filling in nicely. The trees recovered very quickly, growing new leaves. And down to the understory here. So I think as the trees start to grow and thicken up, and the trunks start to turn that nice gray color, you'll see the rainforest will look quite nice, I think, someday. Right now it's hard to tell the trees from the plants that are on the forest floor. So yeah, you'll have this canopy above it here and all the interesting plants below. The last update is my pink pixie Bougainvillea bonsai. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me here in the Bonsai Zone.